Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have another great guest on. And the reason why I think this great guest is great is because of his story and a lot of things that, you usually hear in a typical story. I was just blown away when I was doing a little bit of reading and research on Bill Dolan. And, on his LinkedIn profile, when I started reading, it's like, when he said that he had died, and I was like, wow, like it's rare that you see someone come back from death with a very clarified vision and a thought on really clarifying that path and really getting clear on what really matters most in life. And I love the way that he has framed that in his awesome book and just the way that he's going about with his business, Spirit Media. So welcome to the show, Bill Dolan. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you for having me, Terrell. It is an honor to be here.
Absolutely. It is a pleasure. Now, before we jump into Spirit Media, can you fill us in on your background and kind of what started off the journey that led to Spirit Media for you?
Well, sure. I mean, really, if you go way, way back, it would really start actually in high school when, I grew up thinking that I wanted to be a doctor. And there's motivations why people say, oh, I want to be this or that. And I think like a lot of kids, I thought I had a passion for one thing, but the truth is I was pursuing something that I thought would give me my real passion. That was to think, can I do something that makes me help people, can bring value to their life, can make a living, can be respected, and respectable. And knowing that I think a lot of people desire that, whatever path is in front of us, we think, oh, that's it. And then sometimes we mistake that as a passion. And for me, I thought my passion was medicine. Now, it's still cool, crazy cool. But it only took one advanced biology class to prove that neither did I have the real passion nor the aptitude for it. But I was taking classes at the time that involved me in media. And I took it really as an elective because I thought, oh, this would be kind of cool. And the senior year, they asked me to produce this closing show because I was a news editor and I was involved in speech. And they thought, well, you should do it. So I did this show and it involved slides and images and all those things. And the thing that was so cool is that the 1,500 kids that came to that assembly to watch that show, look, I probably knew 5 of them well. 10 or 20 were acquaintances, maybe kids on the soccer team or whatever like that. But then the rest of them were pretty much faces that literally blurred through my life as we walked through the hallways, the way a lot of us have relationships in our business world. But when I did that show, I watched them. And there were times that they smiled. There was times they laughed. There's times they got pensive. And there are times that they got choked up. And I was holding back tears. I was sitting in the aisle watching a sea of people I'd never really known and realized I had the rare privilege of being able to touch them in a very intimate way, touch their hearts in a very intimate way, touch their minds. And at that point, I couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew I was supposed to be in media. And it led me to college, which led me to directing live television for the ABC affiliate here, which led me eventually to be directing a lot of sports and entertainment, for example, because my skill set, and it's really important to know, I'm not a film director. I don't make motion pictures. I produce mostly television shows. So if you're going into a live setting and you say, okay, who needs live television? Well, the Black Eyed Peas need television. So I'd get hired to be the director, or Gwen Stefani, or Avril Lavigne, or Maroon 5, or whatever. So I'd come in and be the director of those programs. And I continued that journey and just loved it, crazy loved it, and really grew up Spirit Media into kind of I don't want to say a global brand, but in the niche, people knew us. We knew what we were doing. So we would get calls and referrals. And it led right up to really 1999 when I thought I had the world by the tail. I was making a ton of money. I'd had 5 kids with my beautiful wife, though I was not home very often. And I began pursuing a documentary project. And it was on that documentary project and a flight to Nashville that, yeah, 20 minutes into the flight, something wasn't right. And I turned to my best buddy who I was just with, and I said, Tim, something's not right. And that's the last thing I said. My heart stopped. So that's been my career journey. And it really led up to, I hate to say it, a crescendo point for me where sometimes in business, sometimes the race, we're running. And there's really intelligent people probably listening to this program right now who get it. They've thought about life. They've thought about balance. They've thought about the priorities. But I was one of those people who's running so hard, I needed a 2x4 to come hit me in the head. And I did. And it changed my life.
Wow. Now, when that incident happened, I mean, did your heart stop before you were able to get it restarted?
Well, there wasn't a timer on it, but they estimate 2-3 minutes. I mean, not really that long. And I was so blessed that Timothy Greenidge, and I talk about him in my book. He's my best friend for life, and not because he's in my life. He's always just one of the dearest. In fact, you need to know, for those who can't tell, I look much taller, in Zoom, but I'm 5'6". I'm just a, classical Irish soccer player guy. Timothy looks like a lineman for an NFL team, one of the greatest gospel singers you've ever heard in your life. And we're best friends. So when he saw me go down, he literally picked me up and put me in the aisle and started to do his best version of CPR. And he brought me back.
Yeah. Wow. That is amazing. I mean, thank God you have a friend like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something, I think an experience like that really does change a lot of your perspective. So, I'm very curious, like, after that experience, how long did it take before you started making some significant changes in the way you went about, doing your work?
Well, tragically, a long time. It's one of those things that it's not like, I'd love to say, and again, there's some people that have that light switch gift. You flip on the light, I get it now. And they're able to pivot into letting their life reflect this new lesson. In my case, I was absorbing the lesson, and there were both practical lessons about limitations and priorities and, trying to be a father that was present instead of absent, a father that actually slept in my own bed instead of a hotel bed around the world, but also spiritual lessons, because it challenged a lot of my, I guess, what I believe was cultural faith. After you cross the threshold of eternity and you encounter what is God to you, it's like, oh my gosh, everything changed. And I mean, everything changed, but I needed to absorb it. And I needed to understand what that meant. And it's like a lot of lessons, some people feel stuff and you feel it here, and then it has to go up to the mind so you can process it and define it so that you can turn it into actions. Some people get information that needs to be absorbed into their heart that gets into actions. But that process can be a quickie process. Like if I put my hand on the stove, quick lesson. But you realize that something tragically else has been hurting that you couldn't define. That's where you go, I've got to learn what that is. I have to understand that. And also understand why I'm here. Because when you're given the gift of breath after death, I'll tell you right now, I believe all of us are given a gift. I don't think any of us got up this morning and completely and earned and have the right to breath and life and whatever. I feel like it's a gift. And because it's a gift, there's a real thoughtful process to say, what do I do with this gift? And if I've been given a gift, how do I use this gift as a gift to others? And that took a lot of soul searching, because I did a lot of running. People would say, oh, you're a success. you know, but there's something that really happens when you get to a point of peace that say, this is why I'm here. This is how I'm going to live my life. These are my values. And now I'm going to, instead of just building a life, I'm going to build a legacy. Instead of just, making a living, I'm going to make an impact. And that is a transformational process and a lot of soul searching.
And I think that that is a very important one, because I often talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. I mean, we've done, I think in 2020, we filmed over 230 episodes. And it's one of those common things that I hear with a lot of entrepreneurs is that, there is that part of the process where you're working really hard to reach your goal, but just finding, like I said, that internal balance of, how do I balance what I truly value and actually working towards the goal? And I guess for yourself, one of the things that I saw you posted recently, or I saw it recently, was the difference between, are you at peace or are you just relieved? Did that kind of that mindset around understanding the difference between being at peace and being relieved, is it a result of, like I said, the lessons that you've been learning and absorbing over the years?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's obviously I wrote the book as a culmination of some really profound lessons that I believe I learned about marketing, relationship, about faith, about understanding yourself, all those different things come together. But the part that isn't in there in great depth is also the fact that I've made so many mistakes. I mean, tons of mistakes. I mean, career mistakes and things that I've learned that have ultimately, blessed my socks off. But the process was a little painful. And certainly one of those things I realized, for example, when I was working for the ABC network and directing television, and I got to a point where I was going. And part of network television is always a sense of urgency. You've got tight deadlines to the second, but also there's this competition to get it on the air now and da 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 da. There's just constant kind of pressure, and you drive that adrenaline all the way going, yeah, this is it. And you feel like you're winning because you're pedaling so hard, and maybe you have just enough time to go high five, boom, got it. And then you pedal real hard and you go high five, boom, done it. Until you've pedaled so hard and done so many high fives, you start questioning, at what point was I just consumed by the illusion of movement? And at what point was I moving with a sense of purpose? And were my movements deliberate? Were my movements meaningful? Were my movements lasting? Or was I just thrilled by the ride? And there's a point at which, after you've run the ride long enough, you might start to obviously get tired. What's that great song? The thrill is gone, and the thrill starts to fade. And where it really exposes is that when you find yourself getting to Friday and going, I'm glad it's Friday, because what's going to happen? I'm going to let down and have a good weekend. I get to finally have peace. And you realize that peace is really just relief. It's relief from anxiety. It's relief from the grind. It's the relief from whatever it is. And if you don't know the difference between relief and peace, because they both have a kind of a type of thing, you will get stuck in the trap, and you get stuck in the grind. And someone on that post asked me, well, what's the difference? And part of the difference is that relief is an ending place, but peace is a launching place. And when you get to that point of peace, now the things you can do, because they're going to align with your purpose, you're going to align with your calling, align with your destiny, and align with your values. It might sound ethereal to talk about all these things and forget about the fact that we have to make a living. So it's yeah, of course. If we're creating entities, we certainly want to create sustainable entities and growing entities. And that is a worthy value, especially if what you're doing, you believe, is adding and contributing to the well-being of other people's lives. We should be growing like crazy if it aligns with our purpose and our values. But if all we're doing is growing for the purpose of somehow fulfilling some empty need, it's going to catch up with us. It's just going to catch up with us. There's only so many times you go, whoa, look at me, high five. And then you just lay down in exhaustion and wonder where the years went, wonder where your family went, wonder where your relationships went.
Wow, I think that that is very impactful. I mean, and something that a lot of people should embrace. And it makes me curious, as you know, as you were absorbing this lesson through the years, and at the same time still building Spirit Media. You know, how did you balance, you know, really being the leader to be able to set the chart so the team knew, hey, this is where we're going with Spirit Media, but at the same time you're absorbing these very valuable lessons about, you know, being able to balance what really valued most?
Well, that's a great question. Great question. And it seems to be one of the questions of the ages. And we use the term life balance, for example. Let me start by saying that I believe in life balance. I believe in life blend. And it's the recognition that, you know, look, and this is the one thing I found out, is that I used to attach, oh, my priorities are tied to where am I physical? And it was a physics thing, proximity issue. If I'm here, this is important. If I'm here, this is important. Okay. But it turns out not to be so much a proximity thing as mind share. Where's your head and what's your heart? I'm going to tell you, I don't mean to go too deep, too fast here, Terrell, but I'm just going to be really honest with you. After chasing and chasing, you know, and saying, oh, you know, dad's working with all these celebrities and, you know, sitting in the home, President Clinton directing a project and doing this, blah, blah, blah. My kids now, who are adults, are being real honest with me and said, Dad, we always loved you. You're a hero. We love your values, those things. But the bottom line was you weren't present. And I was thinking, oh, because I traveled so much. So no, you weren't present when you were sitting in front of us. Because you're always somewhere else, solving a problem, fixing something. You're on your next shoot. You're working on your next, whatever it is. And we could say things and we could tell that you weren't completely engaged because you had these kind of fixed ways that you responded. And we knew it was all fake. Now, you might not have known it was fake because you might have associated presence with proximity. But presence.
That, that is good.
It's not. It's not. So that idea of that, how you dealt with those balance things, I sucked, to be honest. At different phases, I absolutely sucked. And over time, I've learned, and I'm still, this is one of those things, and I talk about my book. It's called The 7 Disciplines of Relationship Marketing. And one of the things I say out of the gate is relationships are hard. They're the single most important, enriching aspect of all of us in life, on a personal level, on a business level, relationships, because we get to engage with people that are precious and deserve to be loved and honored and respected. But it takes so much energy to do that. Crazy amounts of energy. And sometimes they expect more energy than you have. Or sometimes they expect more attention than you're willing to give. You know, so I looked back and I had to prioritize those relationships, and I still do, to say within the scale of my values, how do I prioritize those? Which kind of leads to that, really the other question that you asked related to balance and blend, and that is, how do you do it well? And while I'm still on a journey, like I believe everybody, if you find somebody that gets it, boom, take their picture and introduce them to me, because I'd love to meet them. But I talk about the first discipline in the book And there's 7 of them. The 7 that are core to the 7 disciplines of relationship marketing starts with you. And I encourage people to get a mission manifesto. Now, you could go to 7drm.com, which is our website. You can download worksheets free. It's completely free. But what I had to do for myself, as I saw among my mentors, great leaders, the people I talk about in the book, and what I've learned through this death experience, is that there's 5 elements to your mission manifesto. And the first one starts with, what is my purpose? Why am I here? Because I can tell you when I was working in broadcast television and do those things, look, I was good at it. I was really good. And I am a great director. I can confidently say that. It's one of the few skills I have. I'm really good at it. But the thing is, I was kind of like, in horse racing, I don't think they actually do this, but you've seen like they dangle a carrot in front of a horse and the horse just runs, because it's always chasing the carrot that's hanging out in front of it. I think a lot of us do that. And that was me. By the grace of God, I discovered my purpose on that race by chasing a carrot that really was only in front of me. It was never intended to be caught. It was only intended to make me run. And I ran and ran and ran. And after my death, look, one of the questions you ask, why did I get to come back? Why? And even though you could look at me and say, well, yeah, this guy died, it's a good question. Why did you get to wake up today? Why do you get to take your next breath? If all of us believe, as I do, that our next breath is a gift from the divine, then there's something behind that. And it means so much for all of us when you not only ask, but then go on that journey of understanding, what is my purpose? What is my why? And I talk about in the book, actually creating an authentic purpose compass that aligns 3 things. It becomes a little bit of a compass. No one can tell you your why, but we can all work together to discover that. And once you discover that and you get that sense of it, the next thing is, what are the missions you must accomplish to fulfill that why? Now, I say missions. Now, most businesses will write a mission statement, which, God bless, if you can do it in one, hallelujah, you're great. But you look at some of the greatest companies, the greatest leaders, the movement makers in the history of mankind, there's actually multiple missions, and it looks a little bit more like a military thing. Like if you say, my purpose is to win the war, but I have to do this as a mission. I must control the supply lines, take the beach, whatever. And so when you start thinking of it that way, more strategically, your missions don't just become a soft, gooey statement that can be embroidered on the pillow in your entryway, but it can be an actionable plan to fulfill your purpose. And the cool thing about missions is that you can't say mission accomplished. Purpose is something you live. Missions are things you accomplish. You get those things accomplished, you have to do those within the context of also your vision. And that's part of the mission manifesto, is for every business leader, for every person, every business leader, I encourage you to get vision. And be careful, because I've seen all these, like, and I hate to say it, kind of lame vision statements. And I say they're lame because there's books on vision, like, oh, need to do this. Let me just tell you my simple formula and vision that I write about here. If you've ever put together a puzzle, like a jigsaw puzzle, what's the first thing you did before you put together the puzzle? You looked at the cover of the box.
Started looking at the picture.
I want to know what the cover of the box looks like. Otherwise, this looks like a jumble of color and shapes. But those shapes and colors have meaning when you have context and you know what you're building towards. And so your vision statement is intended to go right through your visual cortex, which is power in your mind. When you paint a picture, because now you start surrounding yourself with the pieces to make that happen. If you don't, you're going to be like everybody else, including me, who someone say, hey, you should do this. And you go, what? okay, maybe I should. And someone says, oh, you should do this. In the world, knowing that we have in marketing, we have somewhere between 5,000 to 10,000 brand images a day that blow through our senses. And most of those are designed to make you feel inadequate unless you buy their product.
Wow.
So if you recognize that most of the things that we're exposed to in media are really designed to make us feel bad about ourselves unless we add a product or add that brand or the logo or whatever it is, it could be wrinkle cream to a new Rolex to, a Ferrari, whatever it is, each one is basically saying, you'd be better if you had this. And we secretly buy into it. And knowing that the puzzle pieces, a puzzle box gets really big with pieces that were never intended to go in there. And when you get that vision really clear, people can throw puzzle pieces and say, hey, you should have this. And you should go, no, but thank you. Maybe for my next puzzle, or maybe for another season, but not today. I'm focused and have clarity about the vision and the place I'm going right now. And I'm going to work with these puzzle pieces because I got to work on the corners, and then I'm working on the center. And then I'm going to make something really, really beautiful. And the beauty of that vision is when it's so crystal clear, you can now describe it with clarity to your team, your contractors. Otherwise, it becomes fuzzy. It's hard to tell, and people become task-driven or maybe just a project-driven. But when they're vision-driven, you have empowered your team and those around you with a level of clarity that will not only get them to the vision quicker, but remove all those distractions that rob people of the focus they need to get there. So that vision piece is another one. And the other two, and I'll just hit them real quick, is values. What are your values? And know that they're always going to be challenged every day. And one value will challenge you under. Like if I have a value that I want to create a sustainable, profitable business, and I have another value that I want to know that the people that I work for know that I care and love them, and I'm working to build them up and help them to be the best they can be. Maybe the salaries you might have to pay to do that might slow that. So you have to say, what am I going to invest in? This or equipment or this? Or maybe it's the time you need to spend at home with your family, or maybe time you need to spend at home with a friend, or whatever that is. You get to decide. No one can do that for you. But when you know those values, that they will compete, but they will help drive you and they'll prioritize. Then, of course, the last is goals. Because the goal piece of your mission matrix, after purpose, missions, vision, values, the goals are going to attach metrics. Because what is it? One of the great success leaders said, you can only really improve that which you monitor and measure. Of course, I'm talking to an accountant, for goodness sakes. A man who understands measuring. And we can measure it by numbers, but there's a lot of metrics. But it's really important you set those goals, decide what those metrics are, because it now lets you know if you're on the right trajectory. You always have that. It's like road signs along the way, 10 miles to the next rest stop or 10 mile, whatever. But you get the idea. So that's a long explanation, but there was a giant question, Terrell. So thanks for letting me blow that one up.
No, I think it's a phenomenal value there, because I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs, I think there is a part of them that knows, or I say, that knows that something's not quite right with the constantly work until you drop approach. But I think that sometimes they don't feel, they've never really been exposed to, like I said, the concept in the depth that you explained it of. The reality of it is you got to find what's that right blend, and that blend may be different in different seasons of life. So I think it's amazing. Now, for all of the insights you gave us, I mean, for the book that you mentioned, where can people expect to get a copy of the book, and can you mention the website again so people know where they can go?
Yeah, and conspicuously, I even have a copy here. It's and I did everything. I broke all my marketing rules, by the way, by putting an acronym on the front, 7 and then DRM. It stands for the 7 disciplines of relationship marketing. And if you just go to 7drm.com, there's a video where I explain about my death and really the origins of the book, my background in marketing, entertainment, television, and how my death really blew up a level of clarity that can help everybody become a far more effective leader and go through that process of step 1, step 2, step 3. Oh, it's really mind blowing when you actually go through it. So 7drm.com, and there's free worksheets. If you go, you know what, this guy's a crackpot, I don't even want to buy the book. You don't have to buy the book, but there is free worksheets. I want everybody to be able to take the worksheets and use them. And then it will lead you to Amazon where you can get the book. You can get it on Kindle. You can get it on Audible. And so all 3 of those forms. And of course, Terrell and I met on LinkedIn. So I'm active on LinkedIn every week, sharing pieces from my book, but also a lot of stuff from my media background. So I really talk about virtual events. I talk about television. I talk about entertainment. And secretly, okay, I'm going to tell you a secret. I've never said this publicly anywhere.
Okay.
Anywhere. But I'll be talking a little bit more about the entertainment space and some of the impacts we can do in entertainment, because I don't know if you can see behind me. See that guy back there?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's Iron Man. And I'm on the executive board of the Stan Lee Foundation, who founded Marvel. And one of the things that we're doing is we're working with a lot of folks in the entertainment space and celebrities, producers, foundations. And Stan Lee, one of his statements was, inside every flawed human being is a hero waiting to emerge. And what we want to do is work together to tell every child, wherever you are, whatever your circumstance, that, yeah, we're not perfect. Don't try to be perfect and quit comparing yourself with false perfection, but instead embrace who you are and the unique gifts you have, because there's a hero inside you. And we want you to meet that hero, and we want the world to meet that hero. And even though I say that for kids, guess what? Every adult, every human being has to know that and has to recognize that. And if we're distracted by the chase, I get it. But know that the fact that you took a breath today is that you're a person of purpose. You're a person of destiny, and you have lives to change.
Wow, that is great. So where can they find, all the great work you're doing with Spirit Media? How can they find Spirit Media online?
That's an easy one. We're at spiritmedia.com. And I'm still such a joy to have a great, an agency. It's a boutique. It's not a big explosive agency. We work on big projects, but we're not a giant, 300 person firm. And we do a lot of help people with their brand stories. That's a big issue. I coach a lot of people. In fact, with the 7 disciplines, I coach a lot of people on how to form their mission manifesto, because guess what? That mission manifesto can also be a project manifesto. And if you apply the 7 disciplines to your life, to your business, and to each project, I kind of run that through each project. And we still do live large scale events, but they've been turned into virtual. So I'm back into the television business again. We're doing interactive television. And so, yeah, spiritmedia.com is our website, and you can see some of the stuff we're doing, and would love, you, your guests, anybody wants more work in that space, or our brand videos, brand strategy. We're there for you. Totally there for you.
Awesome. Now, before we wrap up, one question I like to ask every guest that comes on, and because you've given us so much value already, I'm headed down to one instead of two. What's one additional piece of advice that you would share with business owners?
Probably the biggest thing is, and it's really a reflection of what we just talked about, the single biggest thing I would encourage people to do is to really understand their real purpose, to know themselves and to know their purpose. When they do that, I think three things will happen. I think that they will learn to love themselves and respect themselves and honor themselves, and maybe even become their own best friend. I think that it will engage them in a relationship with the divine. Because I will tell you, after I died, I came back totally believing in God. And more than just believing in God, the belief that that God doesn't just know us. God doesn't just like us. God doesn't just love us. That the creator of the universe is madly in love with you and is cheering for you and is in your court and in your corner, wanting you to fulfill those great destinies that are seeds of greatness that are inside of you. And so when you get to that purpose, that leads it leads to the door of the divine. And then ultimately, the best part, it gives you like an outflow of love that you can give to others. And when we can love ourselves and love God, the love we can have for others, we can just change this world. You look at the division, you look at the envy, you look at the hatred, you look at the misunderstanding and the prejudice and the racism, and everything that goes with it is rooted in dehumanizing other people. And I really believe in all my heart there's a lot of micro things we can do. But if we looked in each other's eyes and said, I genuinely love you. I've been given the gift to love you. And I care about you and I respect you and I honor you. And I'm going to be present for you. Change everything.
Wow, that is amazing, and I completely agree with that. I think about something that someone once told me before about, you know, when you really start to embrace the love that, you know, that God, the creator, however people identify, when they fully start to embrace that, it changes how you interact with everyone else around you. So I completely agree with that. So Bill, it's been a pleasure having you on. I love hearing your story, hearing more about you and Spirit Media, about the book as well. And thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Terrell, an absolute honor. And I'll be on anytime. And of course, I'm always in your corner cheering for everything you do. I just love.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like our content, be sure to follow us on social media. And if you want to see more of our exclusive content, you can subscribe and become a member on patreon.com/Business Talk Library. Hey, the Business Talk Library is the place where business makes sense.